Morning, good morning. This is Fragments of Memory, your friendly neighborhood armchair philosopher. I've got a confession to make. Yes, I do some confession videos. This is another confession. At one point, I too was sipping the TFL Kool Aid. Now, if you know TFL, that stands for True Forced Loneliness. These are men who talk about how, due to what women desire, due to what women want and what women expect, they are forced into loneliness. Now, instead of us doing the things we need to do to improve our lot in life, to improve our situation, to uplift ourselves, to hold ourselves down, many men complained, oh, women aren't selecting us, women aren't picking us. And of course, I feel some type of way about that. Now, growing up, all men are taught that a man's value lie only in his sexual conquest. A man's value lies in him getting some play. I'll be nice about it. Now, I remember in a oral communications class, I was encountered by another student. He was an older guy. He was a big, swole, cock diesel dude. And he said that at a certain point, men are judged by their successes and a woman is judged by her physical appearance. So even if a guy isn't the most attractive, he's judged by his conquests, his successes. And usually, many a time, a man is judged by his sexual conquests. You know, I was reading a meme on Facebook. No, it wasn't Facebook. It was another social media site. I forget which at this time. But basically, on the social media site, it was saying, all you ladies on Instagram, that's what it was, Instagram. All you ladies on Instagram, you broke just like us, but it's harder to sell DICK. So where was I going with this? But basically, it's harder to get a woman than it is for a woman to get a man. So men see that as, if I get a woman into bed with me, boom, I've made my sexual conquests. Now, I've even pointed out in a previous video that a man's promiscuity is co-signed and even required. Meaning we're judged by how many notches we have on our belt. We're not judged for our knowledge or whatever. We're judged more by the notches on our belt and the successes, the trophies, the accoutrements of success. Now, there's a YouTuber, Mumia Obsidian Ali. Although I don't agree with everything he says, there's a lot of things he says that he's very on the nail with. And the thing he talked about was people's rankings, like, she's a 10 or she's a 2 or he's a 10 or he's a 5 or whatever the case might be. And his thing is, most people that are quote unquote 3s want to get with 10s, but 10s don't want 3s. So he was saying, know your number. And I think when it comes back to TFL, the TFLers, many of them, guys like myself, don't know where they sit on the ranking scale. And even The Rock, the wrestler from the WWE, used to always say, know your role. And to get into my life about TFL, I was watching a lot of YouTube videos. This is a time in my life when I was going through a period of unemployment. I had to stay with my family. And right around this time, I wasn't getting a lot of attention from the ladies, no real prospects. Basically just a time where, you know what, I saw guys I knew that were getting ladies left and right. Or they always seemed to have a lady on their arm. Where me, I had nothing. And I would always think to myself, I never spoke this out loud, it's not fair, it's not fair. Like, why do I get passed over? In fact, in my mind, I was calling myself Mr. Passover. Now, if you know the story of the Passover, Jewish people celebrate it every year, but basically the Jews are the children of Israel, or they're slaves in Egypt. And of course, God sends a series of 10 plagues onto the Egyptians to make them let Moses' people go. But what happens is the final plague was the plague on the killing all the firstborn. So to protect the Israelites from the angel of death, God said, okay, kill the lamb, put the blood on the doorposts. If you put the blood on the doorpost, the angel of death will see it and pass over it. But of course, the Israelites had the blood on the doorposts. The Egyptians did not. So the Egyptians ended up having all their firstborn die. Well, anyway, in this case, I was Mr. Passover because it seemed the ladies passed me over. You know what I'm saying? So it was kind of despairing, where you're unemployed, you're trying to get a job, but the jobs are turning you down, and ladies aren't really looking at you in any type of way. So we as men tend to operate under that thing of any play is better than no play. So again, that's in the mind of that TFL. They're like, man, I'm getting passed over, I'm getting overlooked. Now, while looking at the TFL videos, I started coming upon MGTOW videos, which is men going their own way, and the whole red pill crowd. So nothing disparagingly of them, but I was drinking that TFL Kool Aid. Here I was, this awkward guy. Here I was, this dude that was getting passed over by the ladies. And instead of spending that time maybe improving myself or improving my lot in life, I sat here basically in my mind stewing in these juices of nobody's picking me. What's wrong with me? It's those women's fault. So I went through that. So I exposed myself to a steady diet of those kinds of vids. And then, of course, I got a little huffy. I got a little huffy and puffy. But at the end of the day, there's one thing I do realize and recognize. We are not entitled to anyone's affection or attention. A woman does not owe you sex. A woman does not owe you her time. Now, this doesn't mean I'm going to be caping for every... I'm not playing white knight, but I do want to make that point that not everyone's going to love you, not everyone's going to appreciate you, and you must operate in that thing. And I think sometimes the TFL movement failed to do that. It seemed to be a bunch of men commiserating and having never been picked issues, which... Hey, I've already talked about my never been picked issues. And I as I look back in my past, as I go back in my brain, I realize, yeah, it was those moments when I wasn't looking for attention from ladies. I was getting the attention. I'm not saying I was a player, that I was out here just running through women like water. No. But I do notice that I was noticed to the extent that I did not care or did not have as much emotionally invested. So I think sometimes instead of being focused on what you need to improve on, we're focused on the object of our desire. And sometimes that's not always going to cut it, because ultimately we have to be the ones that improve ourselves, because ultimately in life there are no guarantees. Not only are there no guarantees, we're not promised tomorrow or the next day. In fact, the Stoic philosopher, what's his name? Epictetus, talked about the only things we have control over are our actions. Not only our actions, but our desires, our opinions. We don't have control over our body, as far as we don't control what we look like. We don't control the weather. We don't control those things. So the only thing that I would suggest to those that might subscribe to the TFL philosophy is spend time working on yourself. Spend time getting this right. Spend time maybe, hey, if you need to kind of clean up your appearance a little bit, spend time doing that. Hey, hit the gym, or if you can't hit the gym, do some calisthenics at home. Because you know what? I actually do calisthenics. I do the push-ups and the sit-ups too. I need to get back on it, but I generally speaking am about that. So, and that, you know, there's places to go for that. But anyway, that's my 2 cents on the whole thing. Let me know what you think. Peace.